I never imagined the day would come when my own parents would look me in the eye and tell me that my children weren't welcome in their home. Yet, there I stood in my kitchen, staring at my phone in utter disbelief. Thanksgiving was just a few weeks away, and my mother's voice had carried an unusual lightness as she spoke. "Sweetheart, we need to talk about Thanksgiving this year." For a brief moment, warmth spread through my chest. Despite the tensions that had simmered between us over the years, I still longed for these family traditions. My kids, Noah and Lily, adored their grandparents. No matter how distant my parents had become, my children never noticed. They simply loved them unconditionally. "Of course, Mom. What's the plan?" I asked, already picturing the familiar scent of roasted turkey, cinnamon, and the comforting hum of conversation filling their home. There was a pause, just long enough for something in my gut to twist. "Well," Mom hesitated, clearing her throat. "This year, we're doing things a little differently. We're keeping it smaller, just adults. Something more intimate." My smile faltered. "Oh, so no kids at all?" Another pause, then a hesitant response. "Well, not exactly." A cold, sinking feeling settled in my stomach. "What do you mean?" Mom let out a sigh as if she were the one being put in an uncomfortable position. "Lisa, we love your kids. We really do. But they're a bit, energetic. And honestly, we just feel like it would be best if you left them with a sitter this year." I gripped the edge of the counter, my knuckles turning white. "So, just my kids? What about Alex's?" Alex, my older brother, the golden child. The one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes, no matter what mistakes he made. Mom hesitated, and that's when I knew. "Alex and Vanessa are bringing their boys," she admitted. "But you know how well-behaved they are, Lisa. They're just quieter, more refined. It's easier to have them at the table." A wave of heat flushed through me. I felt like I had just been slapped, like the ground had been ripped from under my feet. "They're just children," I said, my voice dangerously tight. "Noah is 7, Lily is 4. Of course, they have energy, but they're sweet and they love you." Mom exhaled sharply, now irritated that I wasn't simply accepting this. "We're just trying to have a peaceful evening, Lisa. It's not personal." Not personal. I clenched my jaw, swallowing back the sharp words fighting to escape. This wasn't just about one dinner. This was about a lifetime of them treating my children like an afterthought, while putting Alex's on a pedestal. It was the way they had always shown up to his kids' school plays, but never to Noah's soccer games. The way Christmas gifts for my brother's boys were always a little extra, while mine got whatever was left over. And now, they weren't even hiding it. I let out a shaky breath. "I can't believe this," I whispered. "You're actually telling me my kids aren't welcome. But Alex's are?" Mom sighed. "Oh, Lisa, don't be dramatic. It's just one dinner. You and Jake are still invited, of course." I almost laughed. They wanted me there, but not the two people I loved most in this world. I swallowed hard. "No, Mom. If my kids aren't welcome, then neither am I." A long silence stretched between us. Then Mom exhaled sharply. "Suit yourself." And just like that, she hung up. I stood there, gripping my phone so tightly my fingers ached. I could hear Noah and Lily giggling in the next room, building a pillow fort, completely oblivious to the fact that their own grandparents, the ones they adored, had just cast them aside like an inconvenience. I took a deep breath, my mind racing. I had spent my entire life trying to please my parents, trying to earn their approval. But at what cost? If I let them get away with this, if I went to that dinner while my children sat at home, wondering why they weren't good enough, what kind of mother would that make me? Number, I wasn't doing this anymore. They had made their choice. And now it was time for me to make mine. and they were about to regret it more than they ever imagined. For the rest of the night, I barely slept. My mind replayed the conversation over and over, every word cutting deeper. But by morning, my sadness had turned to resolve. Because this time, I wasn't just going to walk away quietly. I was going to show them exactly what it meant to lose me. My parents had always favored Alex, but I had convinced myself it wasn't as bad as it seemed. That deep down, despite their obvious favoritism, they loved all of us equally. But tonight, they had ripped away any illusion of fairness. They didn't even try to hide it anymore. They loved his children more. A sudden burst of laughter echoed from the living room, pure and carefree. I turned to see Noah and Lily still nestled in their pillow fort, giggling as they stacked cushions to make their castle taller, completely unaware of the rejection that had just taken place. My chest tightened. They deserved better. I squared my shoulders and walked into the living room, forcing a smile onto my face. "All right, you two," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Who's ready for movie night?" Noah immediately perked up, his eyes lighting up. "Can we watch the one with the talking dog?" I scooped him up into my arms, pressing a kiss into his soft curls. "Of course, buddy." Lily clapped excitedly, scrambling to grab the remote. We all curled up on the couch together, blankets wrapped around us, but the warmth of their little bodies against mine wasn't enough to settle the fire burning in my chest. I had spent years trying to fit into my parents' world, playing by their rules, hoping that if I just did everything right, they would finally see me as equal to Alex. But it had never been enough, and I was done trying. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Alex. "Alex, Mom said you're being difficult about Thanksgiving. Why do you always have to make everything so dramatic?" I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening. "Of course." She had already run to him. Me. "Oh, so she told you she uninvited my kids but invited yours?" The typing bubbles appeared, then stopped. A full minute passed before he finally responded. "Alex, she just wants a calm dinner, Lisa. You know how your kids can be a lot. Like they were a burden. Like they were something to be tolerated, not loved." Something inside me snapped. Me. "Enjoy your perfect Thanksgiving, Alex. I won't be there." I turned off my phone before he could respond. If they didn't want me or my children at their table, then I wouldn't be part of their world at all. And they were about to find out exactly what that meant. For years, I had been the reliable one. When my parents needed someone to pick up their groceries, they called me. When their Wi-Fi wasn't working, me. When they needed help planning family events, me. And Alex? He got to be the golden child, doing the bare minimum while reaping all the rewards. Well, if I wasn't part of their preferred family, then they weren't going to benefit from me anymore. A week before Thanksgiving, my mother called again. I debated ignoring it, but finally picked up. "Hello." Her voice was cautious. "Lisa, I just wanted to check in. I know you were upset, but I really hope you'll reconsider. We would love to have you and Jake there." "Not you and the kids, just you and Jake." I took a deep breath. "I meant what I said, Mom. If my kids aren't welcome, neither am I." She sighed heavily, like I was the one being unreasonable. "I just don't understand why you're being so stubborn. It's just one night. You know how much Alex's boys mean to us." And there it was, the final confirmation that my children, the two little humans I loved more than anything, would never be enough for her. I clenched my jaw. "You've made it clear where we stand, Mom. I won't bother you again." "Lisa, don't be like this." I hung up before she could finish. And this time, I didn't cry. I started small. When my dad called that weekend, asking me to come over and set up his new TV, I let it go to voicemail. When my mom texted, asking me to pick up her prescription, I left it unread. For years, I had been at their beck and call, Always available, always reliable. Not anymore. And it didn't take long for them to notice. By the time Thanksgiving rolled around, I had missed 12 calls and ignored 6 texts. Then, on the morning of Thanksgiving, another message came in. Alex, Mom and Dad are really upset that you're ignoring them. Are you seriously going to let this go this far? Me. It already went too far when they told me my kids weren't welcome. This time, he didn't reply. I turned my phone on silent and focused on my real family. Noah and Lily sat at the kitchen table helping Jake mix pancake batter. They were covered in flour, laughing hysterically as he made silly faces and flipped pancakes with dramatic flair. This was our Thanksgiving. And for the first time in years, I felt completely at peace. But little did I know, my parents weren't done yet. And their next move would be something I would never forgive. Their next move would be unforgivable. Thanksgiving morning was peaceful in a way I hadn't experienced in years. No rushing to get the kids dressed in their best clothes. No stress over making the perfect side dish. No anxious glances at the clock to make sure we weren't late. Instead, we were in our own little world. Our home was filled with laughter, the scent of pancakes and maple syrup thick in the air. Noah and Lily took turns stirring the batter, their small hands gripping the wooden spoon as they giggled, competing over who could mix faster. Across the kitchen, Jake flipped a pancake with exaggerated skill, nearly dropping it in the process. The kids erupted into laughter. For the first time in years, I felt free. Then my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Mom, I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, it rang again. And again. Jake shot me a concerned look. Want me to turn it off? I hesitated, then shook my head. Number, if it's an emergency, I should at least know. Taking a deep breath, I swiped to answer, keeping my voice flat. What is it, Mom? Her voice was instantly sharp. Oh, now you pick up. I suppose you're just sitting at home feeling sorry for yourself while we're all here having a lovely dinner. I sighed. Mom, if you call to gloat, I really don't have time. That's not why I called, she snapped, her tone turning cold. I need to ask you something. I pinched the bridge of my nose. What now? Did you cancel the credit card? The air suddenly felt thicker, the warmth of the kitchen turning cold. I turned away from Jake, lowering my voice. What are you talking about? Mom scoffed. Your father's credit card, the one we've been using for groceries, gas, essential things. It was declined this morning. A slow, icy realization crept down my spine. The credit card she was talking about wasn't theirs. It was mine. Years ago, when Dad was recovering from surgery and money was tight, I had added them as authorized users on my account temporarily to help them through a rough patch. I had meant to remove them when they got back on their feet, but life got busy and I had forgotten. And they had never reminded me. I clenched my jaw. You mean my credit card? A long pause. Then Mom scoffed. Oh, don't be so dramatic, Lisa. It's just a card. You make good money and we figured... I cut her off. You figured what? My voice was shaking now. That you'd just keep using my money? That I wouldn't notice? Mom sighed, as if I were the one being unreasonable. Oh, don't act like this is some big betrayal. We raised you. The least you could do is support us now. I inhaled sharply. Are you serious? After telling me my kids weren't good enough to come to Thanksgiving, you still expected me to keep paying for your groceries? Are you even hearing yourself? Mom let out another long, dramatic sigh. You know what, Lisa? This is exactly why we don't like having difficult conversations with you. You always overreact. Overreact. I was done. I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. You're right about one thing. I exhaled slowly. I did cancel the card, and since we're having honest conversations now, let me make something very clear. You won't see another cent from me. Ever. Mom gasped as if I had slapped her. Lisa, don't be ridiculous. I didn't let her finish. And while we're at it, don't expect Christmas gifts, birthday gifts, or anything else. You made your choice when you told me my kids weren't welcome, and now I'm making mine. Silence. Then, in a voice colder than I had ever heard from her, she spat. You'll regret this. And then she hung up. For a moment, I just stood there, gripping the phone so tightly that my fingers ached. Then slowly, I turned back toward the kitchen. Jake was watching me carefully. Everything okay? I forced a small smile. Yeah, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, just taking out the trash. He didn't ask any more questions. The rest of the day was perfect. We watched movies, baked cookies, and played board games. There was no stress, no pressure, no walking on eggshells. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to prove my worth to anyone. But something inside me told me this wasn't over. And I was right, because my parents weren't just going to let their golden source of money walk away, and their next move would prove exactly what kind of people they really were. The silence from my parents didn't last long. 3 days after Thanksgiving, my phone lit up with an incoming call. Alex. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity got the best of me. I exhaled sharply and answered. What do you want? What the hell, Lisa? He snapped, skipping any pleasantries. Mom just called me in tears saying you cut them off. What is wrong with you? I closed my eyes, pinching the bridge of my nose. Did she also tell you that they've been using my credit card for years without my knowledge? A pause. Then Alex sighed. Well, she said you were helping them out. I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. Helping them out? Alex, they racked up thousands of dollars on my account without asking, while treating my kids like garbage. But sure, let's act like I'm the bad guy here. His tone shifted, trying to control his frustration. Look, I get that you're mad, but cutting them off completely? That's extreme. You mean the way they completely excluded my children from Thanksgiving? He hesitated. They just wanted a peaceful evening, Lisa. You know how your kids can be a little wild? My grip tightened on the phone. Oh, I see. So they can use my money, but my kids aren't good enough for their table. Got it. He groaned. You're twisting this. No, Alex, I'm finally seeing it for what it is. There was a long pause. Then his voice turned calculating. Look, maybe we can work something out. What if you just kept helping them but set limits, like a smaller monthly transfer? That way, no one has to suffer over a misunderstanding. I laughed again. Let me get this straight. You want me to keep sending them money after they literally told me they love your kids more than mine? Silence. Then he muttered, They didn't mean it like that. They said it. And for once he had no response, because he knew I was right. And deep down, he knew this wasn't about family. It was about control, and they had just lost all of it. A final desperate move. For weeks, my parents had clung to their silent treatment, a last-ditch effort to make me bend first. No calls, no texts, nothing. I imagined them sitting in their home, waiting, convinced that if they held out long enough, I'd come crawling back. They didn't realize something had changed. For the first time in my life, I didn't need their approval anymore. And just when I thought they had finally given up, they proved me wrong. The week before Christmas, as I was wrapping presents, my husband Jake walked into the room, a letter in hand. His brows were furrowed as he studied the sender's name. It's from your parents. I stiffened, setting the wrapping paper aside. Oh, great. Let me guess. Guilt, manipulation, or straight-up gaslighting? Jake smirked. Why don't we find out? I took the envelope, my stomach twisting as I tore it open. Inside was a formal legal document. My breath caught as I read the words. They were demanding reimbursement for years of emotional and financial support. I let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh. "You've got to be kidding me." Jake took the letter from my hands, scanning it quickly. His jaw tightened. "They're saying you owe them for raising you, for all the financial sacrifices they made for your well-being." He looked up at me, his eyes dark with anger. "Are they actually trying to bill you for your own childhood?" Apparently they were. They had even itemized the costs, things like food, clothing, school supplies, and medical expenses from when I was a child. At the bottom of the page, a final sum, $78,542. I blinked. "They seriously think I'm going to hand them nearly 80 grand? Jake scoffed. "They must be desperate." I exhaled slowly, anger simmering beneath my skin. This wasn't about money. It was about control. A final, desperate attempt to pull me back under their thumb. I looked at Jake. My decision already made. I think it's time I pay them a visit. A visit. They'd never forget. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house, gripping the letter so tightly my knuckles turned white. I wasn't nervous. I was furious. I knocked on the door, my heart pounding with cold resolve. Mom opened it, her face immediately hardening. "Oh, so now you show up," she sneered. I didn't take the bait. Instead, I held up the letter, waving it between us. "You seriously thought this would work?" She folded her arms. "It's what's fair." I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Fair? You want to charge me for being your child while expecting free money from me for the rest of your lives?" A shadow moved behind her. Dad stepped into the doorway, his arms crossed, his expression smug. "We sacrificed a lot for you, Lisa. And now you're abandoning us." I stared at them, shaking my head. "No, Dad. You abandoned me the moment you made it clear that my kids weren't good enough for you. When you stole from me. When you put a price tag on my worth." Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. Then, in a voice laced with smug satisfaction, she said, "If you don't want to pay, then I guess we'll have to involve lawyers." I met her gaze, completely unfazed. "Go ahead." She blinked. "What?" I crossed my arms, stepping forward. "Take me to court. Try to explain to a judge why you're suing your own daughter for expenses from 20 years ago. See how that goes." For the first time, I saw it, the slight flicker of uncertainty in their eyes. They hadn't expected me to fight back. Dad cleared his throat, his voice gruff. "We just thought you'd want to make things right." I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound that echoed through their pristine, loveless house. "Oh, I am making things right now." And with that, I ripped the letter in half, watching as their expressions turned from smug to outright shock. Mom gasped, "You ungrateful little—" I turned on my heel. "Merry Christmas." And then, without another word, I walked back to my car, leaving them standing there in stunned silence. As I drove away, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Relief. They weren't angry because they needed the money. They were angry because, for the first time in their lives, I had all the power, and I wasn't giving it back. The aftermath. I thought that was the end of it, that after I tore up their ridiculous demand for money, they would finally back off. That maybe, just maybe, they would sit in the wreckage of their own arrogance and realize they had pushed me too far. But people like them? They don't change. They just escalate. 2 days before Christmas, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Mom, Lisa, this is ridiculous. We're family. You don't turn your back on family over a silly argument." I ignored it. A few hours later, another message. "Mom, we forgive you. come to Christmas dinner, and we'll forget this ever happened. I almost laughed. They forgive me? Then, one from my brother Alex. Alex, they're really hurting, Lisa. Just apologize so we can move on. I rolled my eyes. Of course, in his world, I was the one who had done something wrong. I typed out a response. Me. Funny, they weren't hurting when they were stealing from me, or when they told me my kids weren't welcome. I think they'll survive. I hit send. Then, before he could reply, I blocked his number. That Christmas, as I curled up with my real family, watching my children laugh and unwrap their presents, I knew, without a doubt, I had made the right choice. For the first time in years, Christmas wasn't about guilt, obligation, or proving my worth. It was about us. Real family, the kind that doesn't put a price tag on love. The final straw. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free. As I drove away from my parents' house, the remnants of their ridiculous legal demand still fluttering in the winter wind, a weight lifted from my shoulders. They weren't angry about the money. They were angry because, for the first time, I had all the power, and I wasn't giving it back. I thought that would be the end of it, that maybe, just maybe, they would finally accept that they had pushed me too far. But people like them, they don't change. They just escalate. A Christmas guilt trip. It started small, a text from my mother, 2 days before Christmas. Mom, Lisa, this is ridiculous. We're family. You don't turn your back on family over a silly argument. I ignored it. The next day, another message. Mom, we forgive you. Come to Christmas dinner and we'll forget this ever happened. I almost laughed out loud. They forgive me? A few hours later, another message, this time from my brother, Alex. Alex, they're really hurting, Lisa. Just apologize so we can move on. I rolled my eyes. Of course, in his world, I was the one in the wrong. I typed my response. Me. Funny, they weren't hurting when they were stealing from me, or when they told me my kids weren't welcome. I think they'll survive. I hit send. Then, before he could reply, I blocked his number. The Christmas Eve visit. Christmas Eve was perfect. My husband, Jake, and I had just finished putting the last ornaments on the tree. Our kids, Noah and Lily, were in their pajamas, dancing around the living room, too excited to sleep. Laughter and warmth filled the house. Then the doorbell rang. Jake and I exchanged looks. No way, he muttered. I walked to the door and peered through the peephole. Sure enough, Mom and Dad. I considered ignoring them, letting them stand out in the cold, but then I saw what they were holding. A giant, beautifully wrapped box. I sighed and opened the door. What do you want? Mom's face lit up with forced cheerfulness. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Dad held out the gift. It's for the kids. I folded my arms. No thanks. Mom's smile wavered. Lisa, don't be stubborn. Let's not ruin Christmas over this. I narrowed my eyes. You already ruined Christmas when you told me my children weren't good enough for your table. Remember that? Her mouth opened, then closed. Dad sighed. Come on, Lisa, let's just be a family again. I stared at them, feeling nothing but exhaustion. You don't want to be a family, I said quietly. You want me to go back to being useful. Their silence told me everything I needed to know. I shook my head. Take your gift and go. Mom's expression hardened. Lisa, don't be selfish. Think about the children. I smiled coldly. I am thinking about the children. That's exactly why you're not in their lives anymore. Dad's jaw tightened. You really want to do this? I exhaled. I already did. And with that, I shut the door in their faces. A Christmas without them. That night, we had the best Christmas ever. No guilt, no stress, No walking on eggshells. No need to earn love. Just us. A real family. Noah and Lily tore into their presents, their laughter echoing through the house. We drank hot cocoa, played board games, and watched Christmas movies until they fell asleep on the couch. For the first time in years, Christmas wasn't about trying to prove myself. It was about joy and peace. But they weren't done yet. I thought that was the end of it. That after being cut off financially, humiliated at Christmas, and rejected at my front door, my parents would finally accept that I was done. But I underestimated just how much control they thought they still had over me, because on New Year's Eve they did something I never saw coming. The knock at midnight New Year's Eve was supposed to be a fresh start, a night to leave the past behind and step into a better future. That's what I told myself as I set up the snack table, laughter and music filling our home. Noah and Lily were buzzing with excitement, running around in their little party hats, counting down the hours until midnight. Jake poured champagne for us, his smile soft. It was our night, our celebration, and then the knock. I froze. A cold chill ran down my spine. Jake set down his glass, glancing at me. You think... I already knew. I walked to the door, took a deep breath, and opened it. There they were, Mom, Dad, Alex, and Alex's wife, Vanessa. It was an ambush. I crossed my arms. What do you want? Mom smiled, but it was fake. Sugary in the way it always was when she was about to manipulate someone. We just want to talk. I narrowed my eyes. No thanks. Dad sighed. Lisa, enough. You've made your point. Now let's fix this before things go too far. My stomach tightened. Too far? I repeated. What does that mean? Mom and Alex exchanged a look. Then Mom sighed, voice dripping with fake concern. We just don't want this to affect the kids. Something about her tone made my skin crawl. What are you talking about? I asked slowly. Alex stepped forward, arms crossed over his chest like he was the one who had been wronged. Mom and Dad have been talking to a lawyer. A cold wave of dread rolled over me. A lawyer? Mom nodded, her eyes gleaming. We've been looking into grandparents' rights. For a moment, all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. Then I laughed. It wasn't small, it wasn't quiet, it was loud, unhinged, sharp. They actually thought they could legally force their way back into my life? Alex scowled. What's so funny? I wiped my eyes, still chuckling. Oh, you're serious? You actually think any judge would side with you? Mom's smile finally cracked. We've done nothing wrong. I stepped forward, my voice dangerously calm. You stole from me. You treated my kids like garbage. And now, because I finally cut you off, you think you can bully your way back in? Dad's face darkened. You don't want to do this, Lisa. I smirked. Oh, but I do. Because they had no idea who they were messing with. The last attempt. Jake glanced at me as I walked toward the door, his brow furrowed in silent understanding. You think it's them? I sighed. I already know. Taking a deep breath, I pulled the door open, and there they stood, Mom, Dad, Alex, and his wife, Vanessa. An ambush. I crossed my arms. What do you want? Mom forced a smile, the same sugary sweet expression she always used when trying to manipulate me. We just want to talk. No thanks. Dad let out a heavy sigh. Lisa, come on. You've made your point. Now let's fix this before it goes too far. My eyes narrowed. Too far? What exactly do you think has gone too far? Mom and Alex exchanged a look, hesitation flickering in their eyes before she spoke again. We just don't want this to affect the kids. Something about her tone made my skin crawl. What are you talking about? I asked slowly. Alex stepped forward, folding his arms across his chest like he was about to deliver some grand decree. Mom and Dad have been talking to a lawyer. A cold wave of realization washed over me. A lawyer? I repeated, my voice eerily calm. Mom nodded, her eyes glistening with false concern. Lisa, we're worried. You've cut your children off from their real family over a silly misunderstanding. That's not fair to them. I felt my pulse quicken. What are you trying to say? Dad cleared his throat. We've been looking into grandparents' rights. For a moment, all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. Then I laughed. Not a small chuckle, a full, sharp, unhinged laugh. Alex's face twisted in confusion. What's so funny? I wiped my eyes, shaking my head. Oh, you're serious? You actually think a judge is going to look at this situation and side with you? Mom's smile faltered. We've done nothing wrong. I took a step forward, voice dropping to something cold, something lethal. Nothing wrong? You stole from me. You treated my kids like they were an afterthought. And now, because I finally cut you off, you think you can force your way back into our lives? Dad's expression hardened. You don't want to do this, Lisa. I met his glare, my smirk unwavering. Oh, but I do. I pulled out my phone and held it up. Think real carefully about your next move, because I have every text, every voicemail, every demand for money. And if you try this, I will bury you. Vanessa gasped. Lisa, please. No. My voice was ice. You have no case. You know it. I know it. And if you keep pushing, I will make sure everyone else knows it too. Silence. Mom's face contorted with fury. You're being unreasonable. I smiled. No, Mom, I'm finally being smart. I stepped back into my house, gripping the door. Happy New Year! And then I slammed it shut. True freedom. They never followed through with their legal threat because they knew. They had nothing. They had lost. For weeks they stayed silent. No calls, no texts. And, for the first time in my life, I felt free. No guilt, no pressure, no obligation to play the role they had forced on me. Months later, on a bright spring afternoon, I sat on the porch, watching Noah and Lily chase bubbles in the yard. Jake handed me a lemonade, sitting beside me. Been quiet, I nodded. Yeah, feels good, he smirked. Think they'll ever try again? I took a slow sip, watching my kids giggle as they popped the bubbles. Then I smiled. Doesn't matter. Because I had already won. I had my kids, my real family, and I would never let anyone make them feel unwanted again. Life isn't always fair, especially when family dynamics are clouded by favoritism, manipulation, and entitlement. Lisa's story serves as a powerful reminder that no one should sacrifice their self-worth and happiness just to seek approval from those who never truly valued them. When her parents prioritized her brother's children over hers while simultaneously exploiting her financially, Lisa took a stand, not just for herself, but for her children. She chose to walk away from a toxic relationship rather than allow it to continue shaping her family's future. This is a lesson in self-respect. Family should be built on mutual love and appreciation, not obligation and control. If that respect isn't given, leaving isn't selfish. It's necessary. For middle-aged individuals in America, this story is also a wake-up call about setting boundaries. We are not obligated to maintain relationships that drain us emotionally, financially, or mentally. True happiness doesn't come from constant self-sacrifice to please others. It comes from protecting what truly matters. Our real family, the ones who love and respect us unconditionally. Sometimes, cutting ties with toxic people isn't an act of cruelty. It's an act of self-preservation and strength.